The Rings of Power has created a lot of divide on social media. Some people think it's perfectly fine that Amazon's throwing out half the lore Tolkien wrote, and others are furious that they've put so much money into a series they don't seem to care about. And of course, we've seen shills do their very best to defend this series, first trailers and also articles that have come out about it that have been completely ratioed online. But more ridiculous articles have been released, calling anyone who's criticizing the show disgusting things. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or supporting the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description and the pinned comment, and I do really appreciate all of the support. So, I wanted to start with this Bounding into Comics article. It says Den of Geek publishes article comparing the Lord of the Rings of Power critics to murderers, which is an absolutely terrible thing to do. Am I surprised? Not really. I don't know Den of Geek that well. I don't read any of their articles. I definitely won't after this. But this is a running theme on social media with entertainment journalists. There are a few out there who are good, but like game journalists, entertainment journalists, all of these people that call themselves journos are always pretty terrible, and anyone who they disagree with is instantly a terrible person, and they go on to label them that way, which is awful. It says Den of Geek author Andrew Blair recently penned a screen comparing the Lord of the Rings of Power critics to mass murderers. Not only did Blair compare his critics to mass murderers, he implies they are also racist and also attacks J.R.R. Tolkien for his depiction of dwarves. This article that he decided to release is just a hit piece on anyone that he can attack. It is one of those articles where they want you to click it because you're outraged by the title. They want you to be outraged so that you share it, so that you talk about it. And I'm talking about it now through this Bounding into Comics article, so I don't have to click his article. So I am not supporting his article, and I can also show you all how terrible Den of Geek really is. He begins his article implying critics of the show are racist, writing, in response to the trailer for Amazon's new Lord of the Rings series, there has been a negative reaction based on the fact that not everyone in the series is a white man. Now, the criticism this show has faced isn't because the whole cast isn't white and people are racist. It's gotten negative reactions due to them taking existing material Tolkien wrote, describing races that they've completely thrown out, like dwarven women, for example. Dwarven women are supposed to be fair of skin and look nearly identical to the male dwarves, beard and all, and they didn't follow that. People are upset over them creating new elves of color because elves had fair skin and they didn't use an existing character. They're creating new non-Tolkien characters to throw into a Tolkien story. I don't know why these people don't see why a lot of us are upset, but of course they don't care about actually talking about why we're upset. They just want to call us ists. It says this is patently false, as there have been plenty of criticisms of the white male characters in the show as well. And yes, even the white characters have been criticized, like Galadriel and Elrond. They're making Galadriel this rage-filled warrior when she was the complete opposite. They're taking Elrond and making him this young architect and politician, which isn't super far off from who he was, but it's still a new take on the character. It's a younger take on the character. He's supposed to be a little bit different. Even these characters that we've all loved in the past are being criticized, and they happen to be white actors. It's not all about race. It's about the fact that they're taking all of this source material they have and they're throwing it out. They're putting it in a trash can. They're like disregarding a lot of it. And I know they don't have rights to specific characters, to specific storylines, but clearly they have rights to quite a lot, or else they wouldn't be able to make the show, and they're still not following what they have. It goes on to talk about Elrond and Galadriel by saying, on top of this, many of the criticisms that Galadriel is that the show is trying to make her more masculine by making her a frontline soldier and warrior as well as the commander of the northern armies. And yes, she is a very powerful character, but she was never this very masculine frontline soldier type of character. That's never the way that she was depicted. And again, if this was like one scene where she was in armor, I don't think that people would care as much, but they're basically making this her whole character. They're masculinizing her, and that's what a lot of people are pretty disappointed with. It says, so it's already crystal clear that Blair is writing his argument from a point of bad faith while also trying to imply that critics of the show are racists, and this is an absolutely terrible thing to say, but it gets even worse, of course. It's not just one thing that he's saying here, it's many things. So it's already crystal clear that Blair is writing his argument from a point of bad faith while also trying to imply that critics of the show are racists. But the article actually gets progressively worse. After implying critics are racists, he then goes after J.R.R. Tolkien, implying he's anti-Semitic for his depiction of dwarves. Despite Tolkien's vehement anti-racism stance, there are issues with his mythology. His equating the dwarves with Jews, including linguistically, was intended positively as a representation of dispossessed people, but he also described their tremendous love of the artifact in a 1965 BBC interview, which is a common anti-Semitic trope. It says, interestingly, Blair knows he's personally attacking Tolkien, but attempts to justify it by writing, some people regard pointing this out as a personal attack, an attempt to stop them from enjoying something they love. As with fandom, ignoring the negatives of something doesn't stop them from being present. I say this all of the time, but when you're looking to see something, you'll see it. If you're looking at Tolkien's work and you want to find racism or anti-Semitism, people like this will dig and make connections where there originally were none. So, of course, he's saying that, oh, there's this anti-Semitism in his work. We've heard there's racism in his work. We've heard all of it's in his work. But again, when you're looking for something, you're going to find it, even if it wasn't originally intended to be there. Scrolling down, if it wasn't already clear, Blair then shows his true colors by putting his own hate on display for all to see. He claims Lord of the Rings has already been co-opted by the far right. He then attempts to justify this assertion by claiming that an Italian fascist group in the 70s and a number of mass murderers are fans of Lord of the Rings, and then proceeds to equate these individuals to critics of the Rings of Power. This is one of the worst things we have seen so far by these types of journalists. I'm going to put that in quotes because they're not really journalists. This is such a false equivalency. What do these few people have to do with fans criticizing this show now? Does that mean if Jeffrey Dahmer liked Star Trek that all Star Trek fans are murderers? Of course not. This is absolutely disgusting to say. Just because people are criticizing the show and the content that Amazon is creating, that doesn't mean that we're terrible, awful, far-right people. It doesn't mean that we're oh my gosh, these awful, disgusting individuals. It just means that we're criticizing a TV show. It's really that simple. This person is putting out such a terrible article here, just making, honestly, people hate them more. This is a big reason why people do not like journalists anymore. This is why people look at video game and entertainment journalists and second guess what they're gonna say. This is why people do not go to one website day after day after day, because there's so few that do not eventually do this. Eventually, a lot of websites end up putting out articles like this where they attack people that do not agree with their stance. Of course, this author really likes Amazon, The Rings of Power so far. They're very excited for it. They want to shill for it. So, of course, they're attacking anyone who's criticizing it. Just because we're criticizing it doesn't mean we're terrible people, and it's an absurd thing to say, but I'm not really surprised to see yet another article like this released. And as more release, I'm definitely going to talk about them, but that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.